Okay, hi everybody. This is probably our first video podcast episode. Our guest kind of put me on the spot. I was prepared to do audio only, but so I had to sort my hair out at the last minute. But very happy to have you join our conversation, eavesdrop on our conversation, however you want to see it. We've just been hopelessly fangirling over each other, so there's a lot of respect in this virtual space, and hopefully at the end of the episode you can take away something that applies to your journey, move forward, maybe inspires you to make a U-turn, whatever this episode does for you. I think it's both our wish that it adds value in some way. um, so today, without further ado, my guest is Heidi Brown. And for fear of introducing her without all of her credentials, I will let her talk to you and introduce herself in a little while. Just to reiterate the objective of this podcast, it's not meant to be very formal. Like I said, it's a conversation. We are here to, I guess, normalize the non-stereotypical ways of being a lawyer and having a law degree. Often we are told that we need to be a certain way or have a certain personality in order to be successful. But as you will hear Heidi's story, she is probably the antithesis in terms of her personality. So, and that's okay, right? So, whatever you take away, as I said, let it add value to your journey. And of course, hopefully, it's an episode that you come back to hear over and over again. And yeah, and I hope, and also please connect with Heidi, myself, if you're not connected on LinkedIn. That's where we are most active, I think. And yeah, just continue the conversation beyond this episode. So without further ado, I will hand you over to our guest, Heidi Brown, and she can introduce herself. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Well, like I said before we hit record, it is you're probably the most high profile person that I've had on here. And myself, I don't I also have a title, but um, I guess my branding speaks for itself, law mom. So it's kind of combining the best two roles, I think. Um, because lawyer is just one cap that I wear, and there are lots of other caps that I wear. And I like what you said about peeling back layers, because in my own journey, it's been like that. Like I said, in the last 4 years, it's just been, I guess, me catching up with my own self revelation. Because the more I interacted with students, the more I put myself out to help them in the ways that they reached out, which is so varied. I started to realize, hey, I'm this, or now I'm that, or I'm a writer, or I'm an educator. An educator is something that I ran away from. I know my parents are both within different parts of education. And my mom would want me to be involved in that, and I'd say no. Because I just thought about teaching little children, and I said, I don't have the patience. And then I guess it was a bit of a full circle moment, and I realized, wait, I'm now educating people, le- you know, legal stuff, so that's one aspect of my self revelation. And then, of course, becoming a resource developer, I think I would put writer under that, like writing little guides and manuals, and just to make people's lives easier, especially those that don't know how to apply theory in practice. So writer has definitely been there. I'm definitely going to publish next, like properly on Amazon. Um, so yeah, it's yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, yeah, mm-hmm, yeah, yeah. And I mean, yeah, 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 yeah. I think that's what gets people about me as well, is that I don't communicate it in a way that's stiff or formal. It's like, oh, also there is a simpler way of saying. that, or there is a simpler way of explaining this concept or this legal presumption, or oh, okay, and then you put a picture on it. It's even better for the visual learners. So it's like, um, but I mean, it's really inspiring. I think on both our fronts. Um, for us to have found, I mean, we're still very much in the legal profession, right? I mean, you're still very much in academia. I'm sort of, I think I'm skirting the perimeter now, um, in that respect. But we're still in touch. We're still on the ground. But at the same time, we found something else that we feel is better helping our colleagues than just educating them about legal. I mean, I can give legal education in my sleep. I'm sure you can as well. About cases and just the theoretical side in general. But I think in terms of finding your niche within the profession and being unapologetic, to say yes, I am a professor, but don't call me professor. I'm a writer. It's like, it kind of throws people off, and I think with me it's the same as well. People expect a certain aura and a certain, and I get the respect side of things, where they want to call you ma'am, or they want to call you whatever respectful term is comfortable to them. But the fact that we can sort of be in our respective spaces and still kind of buck the trend and say, okay, I'm in academia, but this is what I actually enjoy, which I think is refreshing for those that are wanting to get in, and they're like, oh, so I don't have to be, like you said, in the cut. I don't have to be in that cookie cutter mode, where I'm expected to be a certain way. I can still be in my field, but I can be me, and I think that's a yeah, and I think that's something that we don't give space to in our, you're in the US, I'm in South Africa. It's like there's too much of duality and uh, hypocrisy. It does have ethical implications. I'm big on ethics, so in the sense that you represent yourself to be one way out there, but in terms of the way you actually deliver your work, it's completely off kilter compared to what you held yourself out to be. So it's just that need for just drop the act, just I know you put on a gown and some people put on a wig, and you're playing a role in a set which is called a courtroom. But I mean, and yes, we have etiquette. We have, even, I'm sure, even in the lecture venue, even in academia, we have a certain mode we go into. We have certain etiquette. I'm the lecturer, you're the student. You sit there, I stand here and talk to you. But I think if that sort of makes us dualistic, I really think like we're really setting ourselves up for mental disorder. And I mean that in the I mean that in the broader sense, not diagnostically, because like we're not. So when someone approaches you in the hallway, for example, is it the same person that was in the, or do you now suddenly become somebody else? So maybe you were formal in there, and now suddenly you're playful in the hallway, and they're like, why is Prof acting so weird? But that might be Prof's actual personality. It's just that she went into a certain role when she was in the lecture venue or in the courtroom. So there is a need for us to like blend. We have to come to a reckoning, I think. And I know you've got a very, like you said, very circuitous journey, which we want to get into in a much detail. So just to kick things off, you said you were a PK, which I am. So your dad was the Episcopalian minister. Mine was a Pentecostal minister. So maybe just take us back to little Heidi, and of course, if you had any proclivity towards what you're doing today, at least in terms of the lawyering, Like, was it an informed choice? Did you see other people? Were you inspired? Or you just wanted to just study anything or study something that was respectable? Same. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Mm. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Exactly. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Whoa. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Yeah. 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 Mm. Wow. I'm sure it can be much longer than that, but man, there's so much to pick apart there. I think that's myself. We have those moments where you just snap out of it. Like I spoke about before we hit record, that you just gotta come to terms with, okay, I have it in me. I have a lot more. I have a lot more in me than what has happened to me, I guess. We tend to define ourselves by our experiences and by things we might have had a hand in messing up. And so we sort of say, you know, you kind of peg yourself back. You kind of punish yourself and say, nah, I'm just gonna, I don't feel, maybe imposter syndrome. Maybe I'm not so good after all. Or, you know, but you kind of have that. And I'm glad you had that. I wouldn't call it a near death experience, but I think I was talking to my brother last weekend, and I say for those people that have those experiences where you try to kill yourself so many times and the gun doesn't go off, at some point you have to realize, wait, I'm not dying because there's something I have to do. And I guess with me and as with you, I'm sure a lot of people are grateful that you had that moment. Um, where I mean, no, go ahead. Mm, mm, Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 And I think in terms of the people that I work with as well, it's you just want to let them get past that initial fear, you know, and then you start building up their track record of, wait, I can do this. Okay, then I can do it the following time with fewer mistakes, and then I can do it the next time with even fewer mistakes, and until I get it right, you know. So it's like we've all walked that path of where we've had to just throw it all out there, and um, to go back to your law school, your law firm experience, you know, kind of faking it. But I'm sure in the faking there was a lot of value. I'm a value hunter, so I would get if you really looked at that experience, there was a lot of stuff that you built up. Uh, Maybe it's micro successes or part, you know, learning stuff about yourself. If you at least learn about yourself, I think even though you're faking it to the outside world, but if you learn about yourself in that process, then you've won in a sense because you will leave that experience with a little bit more knowledge about yourself. So maybe just to speak to those that are feeling the same way, imposter syndrome. I could just got to watch people and copy them and look like I'm doing the right thing. You know, maybe you know going back to yourself back then. Like, what would you have told yourself in terms of making it day to day and of course, I mean, you had the added experience of being married. You know, like I think that definitely adds a whole shake of spices to the mix there, because you're trying to get your foot in the door, or you're trying to establish yourself at this biggish farm, and you know, and then we know marriage is a whole dissertation, doctoral, piece by itself, right? So, I mean, just I guess just speak to that person that's feeling like they kind of have to put on a front, to put on a show. Like, how would you now navigate that if you were to be put back into that situation? Knowing all the stuff you know about yourself, how would you? Um, because the thing is, people often want to run away from that phase. So here it's like a 2 year kind of internship. We call it articles of clerkship. It's a old English term. And so they just sort of go through the motions, and it's like a very fearful experience. Nobody's really teaching you anything about the farm. You just sort of go with the flow. You're just another, kind of a bug in the hair kind of thing. Like, just go away. You're irritating. So it also, those that have low self esteem, it kind of chips away at them. They lose confidence on a daily basis. Sometimes I've got to basically coach them through that phase. And there's not a lot of quality that comes out of that phase, because they feel like they're not supposed to be there. They feel unwanted. They have to put on a show. They have to go through the motions. They have to appear to be proficient in front of real clients when they don't feel proficient at all. So maybe just speak to that situation. Hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, yeah. Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Mm, mm, Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Now that's, I mean, we have to, I think it's a training process because the brain generally tends to focus on, has a bias toward negativity. So we sort of have to look, we have to look for, and for me this year, for some reason, I'm into silver linings. Um, so instead of thinking, toxically positive, I'm not looking for something positive. I'm like, but this is on the back end of it. This is actually good. You know, I like it's been a shift for me to even look at things that way. To say, yeah, I mean, I probably missed. I probably could have handled the conversation better, or handled the interview better, or handle that event better. But on the back end of it, I usually learn stuff. So I will write it down. I'll say, hmm, that didn't go so well, but I now know how to do it better. But at the same time, obviously acknowledging how I feel, and I feel like I messed it up, and but coming away not entirely negative about what happened, but sort of putting it down in my journal, as this. It Yeah, it was crummy. I feel bad. I feel like crying. Let's cry, but the silver lining, and of course acknowledging where I went, where I might have messed up, or where I could have done something better that contributed to it going wrong in some way. So I think it's that also that honesty with yourself about, because you can puff yourself up, right? And I think at least with the crowd that I deal with, they can, the other end of being defeated and closing your body off and pretending is that you can overestimate or you can pop yourself up, or you can allow your family to do that for you. Because here, I know with my grandfather, I only had one, my maternal grandfather. When I was studying law, for him it was like I was already standing in court. So I mean, you can have that situation where your family tends to puff you up, or also they have all these expectations, right? About, man, like she's working in a law firm, don't know what's going to happen next year, and she's sending out applications. We're also hopeful, and in here in South Africa, the Indian population, they put all their hopes on children. So you have to really make it for your parents to be proud of you. So, and lawyering is one of those professions. So your family can sort of puff you up in a way where you might appear overconfident. I think that's the other extreme. Whereas an intern or someone that's just, you're getting to that bar exam or being called to the bar, but you're overconfident, and you, instead of feeling small, you kind of, pumping yourself up too much. So I think for me also, it's, I got to bring them back down to earth. I got to say, you are going to make mistakes. You just left university. You are going to make mistakes, but keep a journal, like you mentioned, journaling. Keep a professional journal. Keep a personal journal. Professional journal is about things that you are learning on the job, mistakes you've made, and what's come out of that, and of course how you're going to do better the next time. Personal journal for your home is, what did I learn about myself? What am I lacking in? And all of us have deficits, and that's why we connect. We connect with each other and we network, because Heidi has something that fills the deficit that I have, or I have something that fills the deficit that you have. So it's not wrong to also acknowledge that. So I get them, or at least I suggested them, that keep a professional journal, keep a personal journal. So you are tracking. So in that entire overwhelming first time in a law firm experience, it's, you're gonna have something to grow. You're gonna be hopefully growing in that time period, and you also have something to reflect. You have those journals that are going to help you to reflect on how far you come, and maybe whether or you cut out for this at all or not. Some of them come through those 1 year, 2 year internships, and they discover it's not for me. And I'll be like, cool, let's find out what is for you, or let's find out how you can marry your law degree with something that you do enjoy. I know I got a colleague that said she left fashion design behind, and she opened, because her parents wanted her to do law. Another Indian colleague, and I wasn't surprised at all. So I said, maybe one day down the line you can do both. I mean, for me, it's drama, it's art, it's writing, it's all the humanities, right? So I kind of have those full circle moments where, like, you kind of marry the two, or marry your law journey to what you really enjoy doing, so you don't have to leave one behind. So I think just journaling through that experience, because keeping it in here you know, is an exercise in insanity by itself. So I think that's a really good set of advice that you would give to yourself. And of course, I don't know if it's still a sore spot for you, but they are whenever I coach, whenever I mentor, I always, especially with the females, I say, you're aspiring to be a lawyer, you want to go into the practice environment, you need to factor in your relationships. You need to factor in how many children you're going to have. Are you going to have children? And I often tell them, if you're going to be married to the career, do yourself a favor and don't involve anyone else. if you know now as a third year, as a fourth year, I know there it's like what 3L, 2L. Here we have 4 years, so it's like first year, second year, third year, fourth year. If you're on your third year and your fourth year and you know for a fact you're gonna be celibate and you're not gonna have get involved with anyone, you're not gonna have children, it's just gonna be you and the career, right? Then you plan accordingly. But if you're not sure, then when you're planning for your career, you're going to keep that in mind. Because I often say, you don't want casualties down the line. You don't want to mess up the lives of your children who might only connect with you by seeing you behind a laptop screen. Mom is there, dad is there, but no, they brought work home. So okay, the other parent now has to see to dinner, see to homework. Like you're there, but you're not available. Like I think it just creates a whole. It's just a Pandora's box that you don't even want to fill. You don't want to create that kind of situation. So maybe again going back, there are those that might be in that situation, or maybe in long-term relationships. By the time they start in a practice situation for the first time, or they may be thinking of getting married, or they might even be embarking on law, as I do get sometimes, as a second career. So they might already have been, in another career and been married for a while and have maybe still have youngish children or teenagers. And like just some lessons perhaps about how to navigate. Because like I said, marriage is a dissertation by itself. It's like you never feel qualified enough. You can be married for 40 years and it doesn't feel like you've learned anything. So I mean, how as a person in a law firm, as an intern for the first time, doing it with, you know, as a married person, and what are the pitfalls? And if you could go, not in a regretful fashion, but if you could go back and do some things or say things differently, what would be the scenario? Yeah, yeah. Mm, 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 mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Mm, mm, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Please. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Yeah, I think I think you know, you definitely have to talk. You know, I think to share about your career with your partner and just try to, as best as you can, and just make them understand why you're doing what you're doing. But I think it's really made infinitely difficult if you don't know. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm, yeah. Yeah, I think there's this whole when it comes to like partners and explaining your career, even if you as a new graduate, okay, you're going through law school, you're gonna land this internship, and you you don't know yourself. You probably did the degree because your parents expected you to do it, or so I think like you said, you don't make a life decision like marriage at a young age. But I think just I would say educating your partner or your spouse to be if you're engaged or your spouse about you know where the career ranks for you, and of course the realities of time, the time sacrifices, or you know you're gonna miss maybe social events because you have to make the billables for the month, or I think just having like the hard conversation of saying, look, this is what being married to me, a lawyer, will mean for you. And I think it takes empathy to kind of put yourself in their shoes. I mean, they could have that same conversation with you in terms of their career and say, this is what being, for example, this is what being married to an actor is going to look like. Or this is what being married to a teacher is going to look like in terms of the time I spend away from home, maybe the work that I bring home. And of course, this is how I plan to manage it. This is how I plan to mitigate those negative effects. So I think having because I don't think people understand what it means. They might say, "Oh, I'm so proud of my wife; she's a lawyer. I'm so proud of my husband; he's a law professor, or he's a teacher, or he's an actor, or whatever. He's so famous." But you don't really grasp the sacrifice that it requires of you as the other person. You can be proud all you want, and it's fair. I mean, you are going to feel that way, but if you don't have those hard conversations, career related conversations, then I think there's going to be a whole lot of there's definitely going to be a wall of some sort where any other issue that comes up for discussion is going to just be, it's like there's fuel for an argument because the other spouse is already feeling marginalized because you spend so much of time in the classroom or you spend so much of time grading papers or whatever it might be. um, I think it's just setting those, not assuming that your partner understands what it means to be married to a lawyer or to a teacher, but like having those. So I think even in my context, when I'm trying to get even students to see, okay, where does the relationship factor into your career? Are you going to get married down the line? You know, are you going to have this conversation with your spouse? It's kind of making them think in that area. So even if you make a silly decision and you get married in Vegas or something like that, it's like you've got to educate them so they are not under any assumption as to what it means to be married to you. Because you are not you. You are your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your prejudices. I mean, it's such a compendium, right? Who you are. And when you say I do, they say when you marry one person, you marry the person, you marry the family. I say you marry the person, you marry everything about that person. And if you're going into it with a lot of career assumptions, especially a legal career, um, and of course you can't fault them for having certain attitudes if you haven't adjusted, right? So I think on in hindsight, obviously everything is better, but I do encourage my students, the people that I coach and mentor, to think like that or to have those conversations because, as you say, your future self will thank you. Your, you know, yeah, yeah, communication. Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, mm-hmm, mm, yeah. No, yeah, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Uh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I think that's a nice place to talk about being an introverted lawyer. I mean, you wrote the book, is the introverted lawyer, so you're probably not maybe not the first person to speak, but the first person to actually codify it. So I know we tend to, like I said before we started recording, that there's all these stereotypes that you must be loud, you must be brash, you must be confident, you must be contentious, you must be able to think on the spot and just sail through your arguments and look the judge in the eye, and and with all these things that we think, okay, that's the mold, that's the recipe for a lawyer. So people will say, oh, you have this, why don't you study law? And like, no, I actually want to study acting. you know People tend to put you in this box, and so even the whole faking it till you make it, it's like, okay, I'm an introvert, but I gotta act confident, I gotta be loud, and man, it's draining me. It's draining because it's not who I am. So I go home every day and I'm exhausted, not from the work, I'm exhausted from forcing myself to fit into what people expect a lawyer to be and to look like and to sound like. So maybe just make the introverts in the audience feel comfortable, because I'm an introvert ally. I'll say it's on record. It's being recorded. I'm very much appreciative, and I've learned patience when it comes to the introverted personality. And I think it's just as legitimate as people like me who want to speak. We want to speak now. We, wa- we can't wait till tomorrow. I can't wait till you process something. I have to tell you now. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Right? So I really had to learn to cut it back. Not change my personality, but just adapt my personality, because every type is legit. Right? So let's just normalize it for lawyers and those that are thinking of becoming lawyers. So how did you, like you said, without your head being stapled to the desk, like how did you navigate a biggish law firm, and even, I mean, even law school, even university, where you're in these huge classroom settings, and people are the professors asking you questions, and you like, you'd much rather dissolve into the floor. Like, how did you navigate your entire legal journey or career journey trajectory, even to getting, even to this point, to become standing in front of students? And how do you do that as an introvert? How do you adapt? How do you modify? Or how do you, yeah, just just speak to the people that might be feeling, maybe they want to study law but they feel I'm too quiet, or you know I want to work on my own terms. I still want to be a lawyer, but I want to do it like you said. Let me close the door and I'll give you the best freedom. So maybe just speak to those people. How do you do law as an introvert? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Wow. Wow. I think that probably was your book in a nutshell, which I have to read. I have to read in its entirety because I attended the Authentic Lawyer Summit um, at the end of last year in November, and that's where I was awakened to neurodiversity in the profession. So we had all these lawyers come on, and a lot of them had ADHD, and it was just I was like, wow, I need to make content. I need to talk to this group. I need to let them know, if the traditional methods don't work for them, you can still have a career. So this whole thing about being neurodiverse and even having those diagnosable conditions like ADHD and what other, whatever others they may be. Like there are people that are struggling with that, you know, and to bring it right down, you could be struggling with your personality type, and that's something you cannot. I mean, for ADHD and other conditions, you can take medication and you can manage it as long as and of course most of the lawyers that were there that spoke at the summit, they didn't get diagnosed till much later in life. So provided you get diagnosed early and you know what you're dealing with and you have the medication, but things like your personalities, you can't fight against it, you can't change it. So like I think I'm really sensitive to um, that crowd that they don't, whatever, and it could be, they could be ambiverts, they could be both, or they could be a nuanced kind of introvert, whatever. I mean, if you want to be a lawyer or something in the legal field, you can do it. There's a space for you. There's a space, like you said, how you navigated, and how you may not speak a lot, or you may not speak or say everything out loud, but there are ways in which you get your message out there. So um, in fact, I'm dabbling in a bit of that now in terms of my content and neuroscience, and I'm quite a geek when it comes to neuroscience. So I'm trying to marry the two to show how neuroscience and law can meet, and all of that. So, but I mean, I have to read the book, and I encourage people to read the book as well, um, because we want to create a normal. We want to create a space, or not create a space, but say it's safe for everybody, whatever your personality type, whatever your background. A lot of us didn't come from ideal backgrounds, but we have faced most of our demons, and we've decided this is who we are, and we're not backing down. And we've reached certain heights, and we've found platforms, we found our voice, and so others can do the same. No one comes from they what would say you go to an Ivy League school, or that's even here, that's in the it's in the minority. Nobody has that family of lawyers that they come from, where your grandfather was a judge and your great grandfather was the chief justice and the Supreme Court justice. And I mean, even that's a whole other group that have so much of pressure on them that sometimes they just need to like not do law. I feel. But I mean, we need to know that whatever our blend, I'm a coffee aficionado, so whatever our blend is, that's your flavor. And if you don't bring it to the profession, if you shy away, and if we people like you and I and others don't make it a space that's comfortable, I think we could be losing a lot of nuance and a lot of diversity in the profession. And this whole myth about this cookie cutter lawyer thing will the lie will continue, and we'll have a whole lot of people that maybe want to do law but say, nah, I'm an introvert, I can't do it. But you put out your stuff, I put out my stuff, others put out their stuff to say, hey, I may not be able to be Harvey Specter. Please, God forbid, no one should be like Harvey Specter. But I may not be able to like wangle my way out of difficult situations as someone like him would, and appear to be confident. But I can still make it. I can still make it in this profession. So I think that would be a good place to kind of land the plane, because you mentioned something about, and I asked you in the questionnaire, what do you want the audience to take away, or what would be the most important skill? I asked you about skills, and you didn't answer my question. Okay, in a good way, right? So you said, you mentioned that somatic intelligence, which is a new concept for me. Admittedly, I'm big on emotional intelligence. Um, but I think I do, now that there's a term for it, I do practice it myself, in terms of I'm more aware than I used to be about my responses, and of course being able to course correct as opposed to going to my default, even in terms of the mental soundtrack, being able to catch myself a lot quicker. So for myself, I know that that works, especially when it comes to taking care of myself, I think. And I mean, lawyers and self care, that doesn't get spoken about enough. I think there's still too many people committing suicide, and it breaks my heart to hear those stories. But I think just knowing when your body is going through something, even if you are having a PTSD kind of response, and I mean, it'll happen. I mean, the law firm director could remind you of your dad, and hearing an instruction from him is like, you want to go into combat mode. For me, I fold my arms across my chest. So I've had to learn now. Yeah, I've had to learn. Yeah, so I've had to learn now to keep my body open. If I want someone to connect with me and to see me as not being a threat, regardless of what I'm feeling, I'll acknowledge the feeling, but I'll say I'm not going to let it translate into my body language. So I think I've been practicing that for myself. But in terms of in the workspace, you said you went through bullying and at various levels at the firm, in academia. I mean, if there are some tips for somatic intelligence, um, where when we are inclined to like go into our shell or have a trauma response or whatever, or be hyper vigilant, or all of these things that come from our past and try to dictate the way we act in the present. Like, because I mean, and I mean, South Africa has a troubled history. I mean, the majority of those that are going to law school um, are are black, and they and their ancestors haven't had the best time in terms of this country's history. So there's a lot of prejudice. There's a lot of um, racial tension and things like that. And it does come across in the way law firms even advertise, because they'll put language restrictions, and it's just, you can have a very visceral response sometimes to maybe an interview, or maybe even getting into the firm and holding your own. So, no hard skills or soft skills. Let's talk about practical ways that they can practice somatic intelligence, meaning they can learn how to be in touch with their bodies. Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. For me, I mean, I like Andrew Huberman's podcast. Um, and one of the many things I've learned this year, I started listening to this year, is the power of sighing. You know, your body is releasing something. It's releasing. It's something that you don't think about. So now I'm more conscious of my size because I know that something is built up and my body is just doing its thing. And when I sigh, I'm now conscious of my sigh. Not that I'm doing it, but I know what my body is. I know what my body is doing. It's like a chimney or like a little pressure release valve that it's saying something is built up that you need to let out of your system. And it's just as simple as letting out a breath, you know. So for me, I'm definitely doing it for myself. And I think in terms of self care, I've also focused a lot on doing stuff. I think I need to migrate that pillar of my content to something like this where you teach people about. I mean, and we carry a lot of stress from law school, from university, because it's a train, it's a steam train, right? I didn't have a gap anywhere, and I suffered from severe sleep deprivation. So at some point, you're going to tell people, stop and just listen to your body, listen to the signals. You know, if your mouth is dry, it means it's already too late because you're already dehydrated. But drink water. You know, if you have a headache, it might mean you need to sleep or you need to go for a walk. You know, it's all these somatic signals that your body gives you that we tend to shout them. I say, no, no, you know, when I'm done with this, I'm done with that. Now I purposely take care of myself first. If I'm hungry, I will eat first. And then whatever I wanted to do, whatever's begging for my attention, I do it after. And of course, I get the serotonin rush of a full stomach. And, you know, you feel a lot better when you just paid attention. Like, even if you need to use the bathrooms, like, don't hold it. Like, that's very practical. Maybe TMI for some people, but you know, just go to the bathroom and you need to do that. Don't hold it and strain your bladder and strain your sphincter muscle and all of those things. So for me, I think I'm doing relatively well. But in terms of like lawyers and self care, I think I need to create some content around this particular part of not just do caring, but not just doing stuff that makes you feel good. You know what they call the dopamine hack. Or cheap dopamine is like just like doing stuff that gives you that or the serotonin, cheap serotonin, where you just do stuff that it's just for a little while that you feel good. But I think we'll do ourselves a longer term favor if we are, you know, and of course it'll factor into everybody, into every area of our lives. So I think that's something um, that's a good self care. I think it's I think it really define self care well because it's not what you do outside of your body, it's in your body. You got to be in your body in order to properly care for yourself. So I think that's where we shall land the plane. This probably won't be the last one. I've had so many people that I just feel like I didn't do justice. But everybody out there, I hope that you resonated with this conversation and that you've taken away some not only professional tips but life tips because we want everyone to be holistic in their wherever they find themselves in the legal field. So whether you're practicing, or you're thinking of practicing, or you want to get into academia, or you want to have aspirations to be a writer, wherever you find yourself. Um, and of course, if you are an introvert, I hope this conversation has made you a little more comfortable, and I hope you will get Heidi's book because she wrote the book on the introverted lawyer, right? So You can go and file, search that out and get it. I know I have to read it. And of course, reach out to Heidi. The best conversations, I think the best conversations take place after an event. You can have, you can connect more meaningfully and, um, just maybe ask better questions than I asked, right? So I'm very, very, very pleased to have had your time today, Heidi. And you will certainly be back. I know that. I'm already getting ideas for content. So I think once I read the book, the engine will just start running. So thank you so much for your time. And no doubt we will have another yes, conversations that I think it grow us individually. I think we often, we're the first person people we preach to ourselves. So, you know, um, many times I got to take my own advice and coach myself and mentor myself. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this conversation. Very, very personable, and I think in terms of bringing out the humanity, lawyers with stories, we're trying to bring out behind the humanity behind all of the letters after our name, in front of our name. We're trying to bring out the person so that there aren't any assumptions, and you have backstories, and you might find a story that resonates with yours, and who knows, okay, where this episode might take you. It might even, like Heidi mentioned and I mentioned, if it touches one person, if it changes one person's life trajectory, it was worth the entire hour of our lives. Okay, so I hope you come to this episode over and over, and that you take notes. And of course, connect with Heidi on LinkedIn at Heidi Brown, no titles. Okay, and of course, you all know I am, hopefully, Lisa Valine Thomas, B for Vicky, otherwise known as Lorna. So thank you everyone for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.